Whatever a person's political party, whether we won or we lost in the last election just 3 weeks ago or so now, most of us breathe a sigh of relief that the campaigning is finally over. But like it or not, there is one more campaign for us to face today. Jesus for president. Yeah. I'm not sure you're going to be applauding in a few minutes. That's right. I think we, as loyal disciples, should start running a campaign now for Jesus as president. It's never too early, you know, or too late, for that matter. I think that's what Pius XI was trying to get at when he made this feast, the universal feast of the church, for the last Sunday to mark time for the whole and universal church, the feast of Christ the King. When he made this feast so important in the midst of the terrible wars of the beginning of the 20th century. Jesus for president. But what kind of campaign would this be? What if Jesus were president? His platform? His way of doing business? His priorities? As he says in this gospel, his very first campaign appearance, he will stand for the truth and nothing but the truth, and let the chips fall where they will from there. No fact checkers needed for this president. We know he would make people mad. His positions are not going to be popular, and he certainly will not say things just so that he can win the popular vote. He'd turn over a few tables, but he would never just target one group and one group's tables. He would conclude everybody in this confrontation, in this challenge, each political party and everyone from people at the bottom 47% or the top 1% and us wherever we currently fall. Triumphalism, thinking we're the best, would have no place in this campaign. This vocabulary of being the best and the strongest and the mightiest. Instead, as he put it, his top priority would be for oneness. Oneness in all people, between all people of all color and all genders and all creeds and no creeds. Any orientation, the poor or the rich, treated with respect and dignity with no exceptions. And fighting against anything that would disrespect anyone at whatever stage of life or bracket. He would judge no one, and he would lead across the board with integrity. Jesus for president. You see, there'd be plenty of suffering under this president. The freely chosen suffering that comes from the sacrifices we make when we love somebody, of putting somebody else at the center of our lives and seeing life from that person's point of view instead of just our own all the time. In the midst of this suffering, though, there would be a deep joy at the very heart of everything. And so when it comes to economics, his rule would be, he would never let us vote our very own personal pocketbooks or anything that just and only helps us. But he would always keep us looking out at the other, especially the least among us. When it comes to the world of foreign affairs, He would ask us to try something that's never really been tried before. Instead of more bombs and saber rattling, he would ask us to try forgiveness. Truly, he would say, the weakest and the most humble position. And he would say, see if God can't do more with weakness and with humility than with violence and defeating, which just seems to create more and more enemies. When it comes to immigration, he would remind us of the time he could not find a place even to be born with any dignity, and how he wandered through Egypt, a foreign and strange land, a homeless and a foreigner there. When it comes to life, he would ask us to stand with and for life in every human being as it begins to emerge at its very beginning till death itself, because he did that in his life, for life. When it comes to health care, he'd refuse to have not have basic health care that every human being deserves, however that could be accomplished best. Because one thing we know about him, he healed people. He healed their bodies, and he healed the hearts of the people everybody else ignored. And when it comes to the earth, he would stand between us and its being laid waste. He would begin by weeping what we have done and still keep doing to this beautiful planet. And he would invite us to fall in love with her and our future with her, so that we would stop the bloodshed of her resources. What Jesus had in mind was folks coming together, forming close-knit communities, and meeting each other's needs. The challenges are many, you see. This president would take them all on without exception and press towards this new heaven and this new earth he kept talking about. He'd call it the Kingdom Party, because it would only be about the values of the reign of God, about right relationships that would mark this world. His campaign slogan, love your enemies. How would that go over? And instead of putting our hands over our hearts as a sign of our allegiance, he would ask us to get down on our knees and wrap a towel around our waist and wash each other's feet and the feet of other nations. Be warned. In today's campaign literature, which is the scripture this morning, the church chooses a crucifixion narrative. His icon would not be a donkey or an elephant, but it would be a slaughtered lamb. His Oval Office would be a hill on which prisoners were executed. And his installation being lifted high on a cross in front of the world. Truth is, Jesus would never get elected President of the United States. We like to call ourselves a Christian nation, but when push comes to shove, a lot of our choices are anything but Christian. And while it might be true that Jesus would never get elected president, what can happen is that he can be president of our hearts. He can be president of the organizations that we're part of. He can be president of our most significant relationships and our marriages and our families and our friendships and our very lives. People keep asking me, Gary, how'd you vote on November 6th? But the specifically gospel question, the specifically kingdom question, is how'd I live? How'd I live on November 5th and November 7th? Because how I vote is with my life. I vote every day by the choices I make, what I'm living for, and who I pledge allegiance to every day of my life. So what do you think? Do we have a chance at this as a nation? How about just our own lives? How about just today?